All right, welcome back. We are WEBD6201 in the winter 2021 semester at Durham College, and it's client-side scripting, week 9, part 2 of our broadcast. And what we're doing here today is we're talking about Express, and I think that's important. And the reason why we're going to talk about Express is because of the things that we did last day, and we'll talk about that in second. Let's take a look at what we had last day. So what we had last day, I'm just going to pull up our project. So we were using this one. What we had last day was when we ran our project locally, and if I was to run it, remember I can't run it anymore with Light Server because we're running our own little server in index.js, right, as an example. Then we can't run it with Light Server anymore. What we need to do is we have to run it with Nodemon, like we talked about last day. So if I ran it with Nodemon, it runs on localhost 3000. And if I kind of go up to our localhost 3000, we have an issue. We have a big issue, right? One issue is that when we inspect the page in the console, we get refused to apply style URL, blah, blah, blah. And we have all these real things with MIME types and all this kind of stuff that we've been running into, right? And you can see that it's printing out all the 404 pages. Why? Because it's looking for a specific page, to go to. And, again, it's looking for, oh, this is interesting. It's looking for specific case, and if it gets that case, then it's going to return this link. And this is not really a great way of doing things. And we talked about that before. So what would be better is if we didn't have to worry about MIME types at all. We don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. And if I kind of go back to my package.json, what we added in was this, right? We added MIME types and all this kind of stuff, and we want to kind of get rid of this, and so we don't have to worry about it. There's a way of doing it without, and we can do it by using a project called Express. If I'm going to go here and I'm going to use a third party anyway, I might as well use something that's already made for server, right? So let's go into Express and fix our problem. So here's Express. I put the link here for you in your page. So if you look at under your content area, you'll see that there is a link in the lecture for Express.js. And we're going to be talking about this way more next week, but we're going to start a very short way of doing things. So if I click Getting Started, and if I go to installing, the way you would install Express is npm install express -- save as an example, or you can use yarn add express, and let's do that. So we're going to go here. First of all, let's get rid of our MIME types. So we don't care about MIME types anymore. So let's do that. So clear, we'll say yarn remove MIME types. We don't care about MIME types anymore. And so that's gone. And what I want to add instead is Express. I want to say yarn add Express. I want to add Express. It gets added into here. You can see that Express is 4.17, but one thing that it does is, if you notice, it includes something called MIME already. So MIME, the MIME database, all that stuff, it's taking care of it for us in the background. And I think this is great. So we don't have to worry about MIME. It's just inside of this Express server. So what Express is, and you're going to see in a second, is a layer that kind of goes on top of Node. Node is the back end, and that's why we did that exercise. We went the exercise of building our basic Node server. And I wanted to show you that there's challenges involved and complexities in trying to make things work. Okay, so we don't need MIME types anymore. That's gone. But we're going to need some other stuff. Let's get into Express. So let's go and take a look at, under Getting Started, let's go to Hello World. So if you look at Hello World, it gives us this structure. So we say that you're going to use const express is equal to require express. So let's do that next. So again, right at the top, the first thing we're going to do after our, it's a third-party module, is const express is equal to require express. And you can see that it picks it up for us. All right, so that's the first part. And let's not look at this for a second as we go through. Okay, so just one thing at a time. And again, I'm trying to do this with you straight up so that we can express, we can kind of talk about what this is. Remember that when we do a require, what it does is it takes the entire class. So that is, as an example, the whole object express, and we make a reference to it here. So this variable express now is pointing to this whole entire class of stuff, okay? And express has more than one method that we can use, many methods actually, a huge API. So one of them is, first of all, we have to use the constructor function to create an app. That's typically what we do. So let's do that. So we'll say const app, right, is equal to express. And when you do this, right, then what's happening is we're using the constructor function to create a new app that we're going to store here. So we're using the constructor function of express. Again, lots of stuff that express comes with it. And we could have done this all in one line. I could have said something like app is equal to require express and then do this afterwards. But we don't want to do that. All right, so that's app. That's really cool. And then the next one is port 3000, which we have right here already. We don't have to do that anymore. We don't have to do lookup MIME types lookup anymore. So this alias for the lookup is gone. Let's get rid of it. We don't need the lookup piece, right? We have our port and localhost. Port and host are good. These are so far so good. We have our URL and we have HTTP, but we may not need these later on. We'll get rid of these. For now, let's just comment these parts out. We're going to comment URL and HTTP out. We may use them, we may not. If we don't, we'll clean them up. And then let's go into the next part. Now there's app.get, and this is routing. That's how it works. App.get allows us to route. And then we do an app.listen. So that's it. There's no router, there's no server. So if I just do these two pieces, then that takes the place of all of this. So we don't have to worry about any of that. We're going to keep the file read for a second. But basically, all of this is gone. We're just going to comment this piece out because we don't need it, right? And we don't need the server at all because the server is this, right? So we're going to take this piece, cut it out, and we're just going to put it at the bottom so we can have it to look at later. And I'm going to comment the whole piece out. We may need this later on. We're just going to go into here and we're going to toggle a block comment on for this part. Again, just a little bit of restructuring for our server. We don't want to do this necessarily, but what we're going to do is we're going to take this console log the way we have it and cut it and replace what we got from Express so it looks like this. Okay, so that's what the console log is going to look like. We don't need server.listen anymore. In fact, we don't need the server anymore. We can just grab this part and pull it over here and then get rid of the server. So now what it looks like is something that looks like this. All right, so we have a require file system we're going to use later on. That's why I've kept it. We have require express, and all we're going to do is a hello world and see how that looks. So save here, and we're going to press Control backtick, and we're just going to do a Nodemon and see what happens. So Nodemon, if there was an issue, right, as an example, it says, well, there's no port. This is neat. We just stole port from the thing that's online, but there's no port. It's actually port, capital P. So we'll put that in there and save it, and now it'll run. Okay, so that's running now. This is typically what the errors would look like. Whenever you get something like this, read the error. Reference error, port is not defined. It tells you what the problem is. I know there was a lot of changes. So, but Nick, what I want you to think about is if you look at the server, all I want you to have is this. And just have the place for the file system part, where it says file system read file. Let's just leave that alone. This part is okay. But just copy it and put it lower down. So we're going to use it later on. But just have something that looks like this. Okay, that's all you need. And in fact, I'm pretty sure we don't need HTTP or URL. So we can just do something that looks like this, even simpler. So this is the only pre-bundled node module we're going to have is file system. And then the third-party module we're going to use is Express. All right, so that's it. Okay. And to help you, let's put this up on GitHub. So save, and I'll say that go into this, and we'll say git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say updated server file, git push. So you have that up online. All right, so just in case I was too fast, and I was, all I did was I just restructured so that way we can have something that looks like this. All right, cool. So let's check this out online now. And now that we're running Nodemon, let's check it out online and let's see what it looks like. If I press refresh, we get hello world. Yay! We also get this favicon thing happening. Well, we don't have a favicon, but who cares? If I refresh again, it goes away. All right, so that is back to where we were before, but we want to access all the files on my server, and I want to support my single page application. One thing we talked about JavaScript and TypeScript. I want you guys to continue to use TypeScript. So one thing is, let's put in all the remarks that we need. So one, we need semicolons. The stuff I copied from the Express site didn't have any semicolons, and that's just the style that people use. I don't use that style. I use semicolons for all my lines. Do you need them? No, but I use them. That's number one. Second thing is, let's convert our file from an index.js to an index.ts, just to give us type support. All right, so again, this is all new to you. This is a great example of how to do that. I'm just going to rename this thing to index.ts. Again, remember that we can't use TypeScript unless we transpile. So we have to do Control-Shift-B to transpile. We're going to do a watch task to transpile from TypeScript to JavaScript. Okay. And now it's giving us some errors. It's saying, we don't know what you want to do with these require statements. Okay. For TypeScript, using const to receive a variable from a module and using Node.js doesn't really compute. Okay. Node.js doesn't like this kind of stuff. Instead, it needs an import statement. So let's use import to require file system. Okay. And we're going to use import to require express. Okay, that's something that we're going to do. So import. And one thing that'll really help us out is a couple things. First of all, so notice when we put require in there, and again, I'm just translating from TypeScript to JavaScript. JavaScript is going to look perfect. It's going to be express is equal to require express. You can see that we're using consts here. Right, and we're using it says exports ES module value true when it comes to using the exports keyword. Okay, so that's what it does, exports. But we're using import to do this. It says cannot find FS or corresponding type declaration. Well, to help us, let's add some type declarations. Remember we said we don't know about anything. TypeScript doesn't know until you add some type declarations in here. Let's do it. So we'll say yarn add @types @types/node, right? And then @types/express. Let's add those two things. So yarn add @types. Remember, @types is the type annotation files that we get, so we get good support from TypeScript. And we're going to add information about Node.js and information about Express. So let's just press enter. And if we did this now, there's some problems. There's good things and bad things about doing this, right? It takes away the errors, but we put them in the wrong spot. We put them inside here, and we should put them inside dev dependencies. So let's undo those changes. So let's try that again. Oh, by the way, one easy way to fix this instead of removing them and placing them is just literally just cutting them from out of our package.json file. So we cut them out of here, and we put them into here. Okay, there's nothing wrong with doing that move because remember they're already in our package, right? We don't have to worry about it. It's there. It's just what kind of dependency is it? Is it a dev dependency, which is what these are? These are helpers to help us develop, or are they a dependency? That means that we don't have it, our site breaks. That's what dependency means. Okay. So these are dev dependencies. They're for us. And when I did that, if you look at my index.js now, we're good. These things are, we get some code hinting. And if I go to FS, we get some information about what they are. Express, it gives us some information about my app, about my port, about my host. All these things are good. It even gives me information about getting and listening, right, to my app. So it's pretty cool. All the good stuff that we expect from TypeScript. Yarn add is the command. So it's when we did the command for adding things in is yarn add at types / node at types / express. And what you want to put in is minus dev. I didn't do that, but you want to put in minus dev. And what this will do is it will store everything in your package.json in the right spot. So it'll put it right here. Okay, that's what it does. And that gives us type support for Node.js. Okay, hopefully moves that was good. All right. No problem. So that is this. We've updated our package.json file. Let's make sure that this is all correct too. WEBD6201 winter 2021 lab 1b is not correct. It's actually ICE. Because we're going to put this up online in a sec. ICE, is it ICE 8? I think it's ICE 8 now. No? Let's make sure that it is. I think so. I think it's ICE 8. Yeah, it is. All right, so that's what it is. Week 9, ICE 8. Yep, so ICE 8. So this is demo site for ICE 8 in class exercise 8. And then this obviously is all wrong too. Instead of ICE 1b, it's ICE 8b. So I'm updating my repository information as well so that this is all correct. I haven't really modified this too much and I didn't care about it too much, but now I'm going to. Main should not be app.js. Main should be index.js. Let's make sure that that is correct, right? Because index.js will point to this. That's what we're looking at there. That's important to put in. We're going to also modify this later on with other information. All right, so that is our site. Now we go back to my index.js and we can see that it says here we're not using FS. That's okay. App and port are okay. If you really want to specify what these are, you can go with number and string. So if I said like explicitly say that this is a string, I can do that. Now we're having a problem with this part. This part is a request object, and this is a response object. Notice that that's what it is, a request and a response. And I can specify those whatever I want. If I say something like response, and notice that if I go down, there's one called server response, right? So I could put that in there, a server response type, but that's not correct. And because look, it's trying to get our server response from HTTP. It's trying to import this thing because server response isn't the type. So if I undo those changes, so let's see what kind of response it is. So if I hover over response, you can see that it says response. That's the response type it is. So what other kind of response? I can say response type, right? But response type doesn't really give me my code hinting. Response type is incorrect, right? So that's response type. Because it needs some kind of, remember, TypeScript wants you to have some kind of info in there, right? So again, what kind of, because this, remember, request response, that's what they stand for. So response, right? Response type, server response, HTTP server response. It's really an express server. Yeah, don't do response. Don't do an add types response. No, don't do it. So remember, that's what this is. So this is an express server, right? So core.express. This app tells us it's express. That's what it is, express. App.get, right, basically says it's a type of, we're getting information from express. This is actually a route. So this is routing, basic routing. And this is a listener, right? So this kicks off the server as an example and listens on this port. right? And listens on port, whatever that port is. Okay, that's what this does. So this is routing. So it says for the basic route, we need some kind of request response. And response.send, send basically, notice that there is a couple of options for send. We can make a new buffer. We can add a send object. I can send a 404 or some kind of a status on top of send. For example, I could do something like, I want to send a status code of 200, right? Alongside with my send. So I can tell everything that, that the thing is okay. Request object is not being used right now. All right, so that's something that's not happening. All right, so that's app.get, and that's what it does. App.get, we're using this thing, and that's how it works. So pretty good. So that's how it works. But what we want is we want to load some static files. We want to be able to load our hello world or index.html. That's going to be our main site. That's what we want for our files to work with, right? We don't want to just respond with a hello world. That doesn't make any sense. So how is it that we can load static files with Express? Okay. And the other thing is we may want to do some stuff with the path. Let's take a look up on Express and see if we get some hinting on this one. So if I go back to my Express site, then I can see that, yes, this is good. I can definitely do this. But if I go back here and if I go to static files, there's something called static files. I can start looking at using something called Express static. And I can also use the path, right, to help us as well. All right, so what I want to do is a lot of times is path join. I want to join something to the path. So Express static says put everything in public, right? So that's what I want. That's what Express static does. There's some good examples of how this works. Here is exactly what we want to do. We want to say that we want to app use, right, as an example, and we want to use Express static, but we want to do a path join with dir name and public. This is kind of what we want to do, this idea of what we're happening. So what does path join do, and where does that come from? Well, path comes from the built-in. It's a bundled, pre-bundled node kind of module. So let's get that bundle. So up on top here, we're going to say import path, and that's equal to require path. Notice that it came up. I didn't have to kind of put what path is. Path is part of the pre-bundled node module. So I have the path now. And I can say something like that. I can say app.use. And what I want is I want to use, just like up here, Express static. So that's what I want. So I want to say Express static. And then inside there, I want a path join, path.join. And I want to join two paths. One path is going to be underscore dir name. That's going to be our main directory, and a path. For example, let's do node modules. Start with node modules. So node modules, if I said I want to join node modules on the path, right? What this does is it says, hey, listen, I don't want to go through each node module. There's a lot of stuff in node modules. Imagine if I had to load everything individually, each one, and I have to, look through each of these things. It's too crazy, right? That's like nutty for me to go through each module in the node modules folder. But as soon as I do this, as soon as I put node modules on the path, I no longer need to specify node modules to call node modules. It'll actually search node modules and the regular path to find anything that I want. So an example would be, how does this change my site? If I go to my index.html now, and if you notice where I call node modules, I don't have to call node modules anymore because I've actually included it as a static join to the path. Remember, my path is my directory name, c:\/ my desktop and / Durham College and so on, where this thing lives. Okay, so instead of me calling node modules now, all I have to do is just call Bootstrap. which makes it cleaner. I don't want to think about node modules. I just want to think about Bootstrap and Ford Awesome. So we can get, well, I'm just modifying index.html to show you this. Same thing down here. I don't care about this stuff. So now jQuery and all that stuff, all the modules that come from somewhere else, the third-party stuff that I didn't write, I don't want to think about where it comes from. Node modules is there, but I want to link to it. I don't want to talk about it. All right, so that's the one thing that I can do with this static routing, but I can also load other files. All right, so let's go back to my index.ts here for a second. So that's one thing. I've modified this, and this allows me to join everything in node modules in there. And that's what path join does. It allows me to do that. And so I can do things like static files. I can mention what those are, right? But what I want to do is inside here, inside my app get, when I go to this route, which is the main route, I want to read something that we've done before. I want to read my file, which is my index.html, right? But I'm going to read this index.html multiple times, one for each route that I go to. So let's make a function to do this. So I'm going to make a function down here. And the function is going to display my single page application. So it's going to be called display single page application. I'm going to have to pass in some information in here. Notice that I have, if I'm going to do this, I need the response object, right? So I need to get the response object, which is going to be a response, right? Which is a server response. That's what I said before. It's a server response type, right? Which is this, okay? And I'm just going to talk about this in a second. So again, let's just undo that change, but that's the object it's going to be. I could also make it so that it's of type any, but I need the response object to be passed in. All right, so for now, let's make it any because we don't know how it's going to be. It's going to return void, right? It's going to return void, and we need some curly braces. So that's what display spy is. Remember, any means I don't know how to get this. Okay, we're going to figure this out. I want to take this part here, right, and I want to copy it, and I'm going to put it inside my display spa. Okay. And instead of reading a file, I know what this file is, guys. This file is going to be my index.html, right? That's what I want to look up. I want to read the file that is index.html. That's what it's going to be, right? So lookup path I don't need because we don't have MIME types anymore, right? And I don't care about writing head 200 or anything like that. You know, we can just write head by itself, right? So we can, you know, set the header to, setting the header to no sniff to avoid MIME sniffing. Again, I really don't need to do that. It takes care of it for me. So I want to be able to write 200 and send the data out, and the data is going to come from the thing that I watch. Let's change this so it's more modern. So we're going to use kind of a fat arrow function. The only thing I have to worry about is this file thing. That's the one thing we have to worry about. So for now, let's just put in a stub that says, I want to look at index.html. Anytime I go to call display spa, it's going to call this function, pass in the response object, and I'm going to go to my index.html file and load it from there. So that's what this function is going to do. Okay. So let's use this thing and let's see if it works. If I put that inside, well, instead of saying response, say hello, let's just go and put that in there. So we'll put in display spa and we'll pass in the response object. That's what we'll do, is pass in the response object in here, right? From here, pass it in, and then we'll get this. Let's see what we get now when we do this. Okay, we're going to get some errors, but one step at a time, right? So again, what I've done is I've made a function down here called display spa. Spa being the single page application, right? I don't need this part anymore because I use it just for a placeholder, right? And that's what's my function is going to be. Notice that the function is down here, but it doesn't matter where it is in JavaScript. It doesn't have to be above. And just like regular JavaScript, we're using backend JavaScript on Express to do this. So save. What does this look like when I'm running? Remember that it transpiles from index.ts to index.js, and it looks like this altogether. Okay. Nice, nice. Let's see what this looks like online. So if I go back to here and I go to localhost 3000 and I just put in enter, then I get a bunch of errors. I like the errors because errors are something we can deal with, we can fix. It starts trying to think about what all this stuff is. And it says, I don't know where scripts is. I don't know where my contact and my user and all this stuff. I have no idea where any of this stuff is. And these are all 404s, by the way. 404s are super easy to fix, right? These are 404s. And this one says, I have no idea what my content page is because the MIME type text.html is not supported. We don't want to do MIME types, right? So we want to include a bunch of this stuff inside of automatically in our pages. So we can create an area for this. Let's make a new folder, right? So again, I want to make a brand new folder, and I want to call this folder client with a capital C. This is our client's files. And anything inside of client, I want to use as a static join. I want to join client, anything in client, inside of our files. Right? So I don't have to I'll never call client the folder, but I will be able to get to content and data and scripts. All those things should be inside of client. So I'm going to take content and data and scripts, those three things. I'm just using the control key to select these. I'm going to drag and drop them into client. So now we have client, and underneath that we have content, data, and scripts. It's just a move I've done into client. All right, now this is going to say, you're going to say, whoa, Tom, if you do this, it's going to screw up our relative pathing. Yep, but unless we do something that looks like this. If I said, okay, app use, I want to use express static, where I want to load static files. That's what express static does. And I want to do a path.join with our dir name and anything that's inside of the client folder. That's what this does. So it basically says, okay, take everything in the client folder and join it to the path. I don't have to search for this anymore. And as soon as I do this, now these things become available to me. And if I press save, right, as an example, this would rejig my server. And let's take a look. If I refresh now, what I get. Okay, now I get some 404s. Now I get some 404s. It says, I don't know where views components is. I don't know where views content is. I don't know where views, well, anything is. I have no idea where this is, right? It's trying to find these things, but it has no idea what this is. Why is that? Well, because of my JavaScript doesn't know anything about views, right? And because it's not included inside of this client, it doesn't know where to go. So we're going to make another static join. Let's do it. App.use express.static, and we're going to say path.join, and then inside path.join, we're going to say the dir name and our views folder. So now our views folder in there, but it's still going to present an error because now when we do this, if I press refresh, you're going to see that it still doesn't know what those are. But we can fix this because now views, the whole views folder is included, including all of this. So we don't need to use the views name anymore in our JavaScript. So let's modify our files. So I'm going to go back into JS, into our app.js, and we're going to search for views. So I'm going to kind of go Control F and search for views. And we see there's 3 references to views. Let's just remove views and just start with components. So we're going to say, I'm going to go to components header.html. Yay. Okay, let's go to the next one. I'm going to go to content page name.html. Let's go to the next one. I'm going to go to components footer.html. Those are the 3 references inside of our app.ts. And save. Okay, so we've removed views actually because views are part of the path. We don't have to reference them anymore. So if I go back and refresh, now we're golden. That's the first part. First part is getting our static page running. That's the first piece. It's running. We see that once we see this, man, I'm happy if I see this part, right? Super happy because that means that our single page application is forming up now, right? We've still got some issues we're going to fix, but those are easy to fix. This part is the harder part, the part that we were thinking about, which is how do I make my server load stuff? And when I'm loading things that are static, I don't want to worry about ever. I want to think about loading scripts. I don't want to ever do this, or loading data, or loading any kind of CSS or assets. Oh man, we forgot assets. Let's put that assets inside the content of the client side. Because we might have images too, right? Images should be in there too. Any images, all that stuff should be inside there. Okay, let's put this up in GitHub. So we'll say that git add dot, git commit -m, and we're going to say restructured project to work with Express. And then git push, put this up on GitHub, and we're good to go. So now you have all that. All right. Again, slowly. We're getting to the stuff where we're using Express. We're building it by hand, slowly, right? And we're using very simple routing. Right now, we're just doing this route, and we're using display res, right? That's what this is. I have a 404 page, but I don't want to use this 404 page. I want to use my index.html to do my 404. So how would I do that? And how does routing work? Well, let's go back to our index.ts here. And remember that this is a specific route. We can do a get and we can do a post, and we'll talk more about routing next week. But I want you to get this is just a preview of what we can do, right? So app.get, and there's also app.post, right, for our router. I can also do an let's do some other stuff. App.get, let's write a new route. This is a new route. And we're going to make it a wildcard character. We can use the wildcard character with a request response object, right? That's what we can do. And what we can do with the request response object when we get a wildcard character, the wildcard character, so this is a wildcard route. That means anything else. First, we know we've specified this route, the slash, the default route. This is the default route, right? That's what this is. And this is the wildcard route. Either way, I want to go back to my display spa, right? I want to display my single page application, right? Either way, no matter what I get. But the difference is what I'm sending to my single page application. Remember, we also have this little router file. My little router file, which is inside of my router.ts, says, hey, I'm looking for this stuff. If I don't get this stuff, I'm going to send you a 404. All right, let's see if this works now. So save this, and I'm going to go here and save this. And if I go back to this, and if I press enter, we're okay. But what if I press something like ABC? Now I'm going to get a 404. And the 404, it's a proper page. Take a look because it's inside of I have my navigation. This is not server side stuff. This is client side stuff that I'm sending you back. 404 page. So that's what this is. That's what we just did here. We just made it so that anything that's not what we request, anything, by the way, that means even things we haven't talked about, like about, that's going to give us an about page. Take a look at that. That kind of went to about, right? But if I start off and if I do localhost 3000, right? And if I press enter, and then if I type in strict about like this, it's going to take us there, right? That's interesting now that it works. Look at that. And anything else that computes, like for example, services. our services. That all works now, right? And how about contact? That contact page is broken, and we'll talk about the contact page in a second. So contact page, that stops working, and let me show you what this does. So if I go into inspect, we have a problem with our contact page that keeps throttling, right? Well, what's actually really happening is there's a bit of a bug that I'm going to fix for you right now. So let's go back out to the page and fix the contact page. First things first. That's a bug that's inside of my app.ts. Uncaught syntax error. Identifier router has already been declared of B. I'm not sure why you're getting that, Nick. Is anyone else getting that? Because you shouldn't get that. There shouldn't be no reason to get this. I'm wondering why you get that. If you're using my code, you shouldn't get that at all. A route that doesn't exist. Okay, I'm not sure why. Yeah, that totally works for me. But what if I typed in something else? What if I went and actually tried to type in a page? Like if I went to my route and I typed in /index.html, it's going to give me 404, right? If I typed in something else, like, contact.html, right? It's going to give me a 404. Notice that this is printing out my route, whatever that is. That's the path name. And the same thing goes if I type in something else, something like ABC or 123, right? So if I type in, like, something weird, it's going to print that out. It's going to still go to 404 page not found. All that's going to go to 404 page not found because of this, because of this little puppy right here, this little line. All right, that's what does it. So this basically says, okay, I'm going to receive everything else. This is something that I'm getting. As long as it computes, I'm going to go to my main page, right? Good way of also checking this, by the way, guys, is checking it with another browser. So let's do it with Firefox. So Firefox, and I'm typing in login. Does it go to login? It does. It does routes nicely. Look at that. So that it routes the exact same way that it did before. But if I type in some weird stuff, right, it's going to give me a 404. All right, and that's a custom 404 that we made together, right? All right, so that is how it works. I'm not sure why you're getting that error, Nick. Shouldn't. And that's great, but we have a problem with our contact. Let's fix our contact page. So I'm going to go to app.ts. And under our app.ts, we're going to go, and I'm going to use the outliner like we did before. I'm going to use the outliner to get there. Unexpected angle bracket in JSON at position 0. Yeah, I need more information than that. I think I need a screenshot. All right, so again, if you look at all of these are the things. Display contact is the list. And down here, man, this is what's causing it. Take a look. Display contact is going here. I'm doing form validation. And then what's happening is I make an event handler for the button. Here's my event handler for the button. And then I go down here and it loads the contact page again. And it keeps loading the contact page over and over again. This is a cyclical reference over and over again. What it should read is this load link, which is on line 226 of my app.ts. Shouldn't be in here. It should actually be in here. That's the only difference. It was a copy paste error that we had, right? That's in the contact form. So that should take care of our contact problem. All right, so that was the bug that we had. And now if I go to my contact us page, right, and if I look at, I'm just looking at Firefox here for a second, and I inspect element and go to console, right, we're seeing that this is cyclical. Well, the reason for this is because I need to go back and reload my page, my real page. Remember, if I just do this, it would have caused issues, right? And it says too many calls to my history object, right? That's what this does. Too many calls to my history object. That's why it stopped, right? What about if I went and tried on here on Chrome. And again, what I want to do on Chrome, to make sure that we go back and start this off. So this is my slash. And if I go to my contact page, do I get that weird cyclical reference? No, I don't, right? Now I can go to login, and let's do login. Yes, I will. One second. Logs in nicely. I put some information. Let's get rid of all this. It's going to get rid of all this information, which is also going to cause a problem. So let's say this is what we have. We had a problem that this button doesn't work anymore. That's the other problem we have to fix. Okay, so let's log out of there and go back to this. And the problem that I fixed, Muzda, is this one. So display contact, I moved load link inside of my event handler. That's what I did. Yeah, that's what fixed the display contact issue. Okay. All right, but what about this other problem that I have here? Why is it when I go to login and I log in, and if I have nothing inside here at all, I can't click the button? That's another dumb error, right? So if I go to contact list, this is really dumb what we did here. What I did, I'll see your errors in a sec, Nick. I say, okay, if local storage is greater than, length is greater than 0, then do all this, right? So it does everything in the blue area, including this add button. So add button will never be, there won't be an event listener if my storage is empty. But that defeats the purpose of having an add button. The storage should be empty to have an add button. So let's move this from contact list, and we'll cut it and we'll put it underneath this here. That's all we're doing. We're just moving it down one. So instead of it being inside this if statement, this if block, which is basically saying if my local storage length is greater than 0, we don't care if local storage is 0 if I want to add something new. So this has to be here. And that's the problem with my contact list. Okay, so now when I go back to this, we have to refresh. Notice I have to refresh the screen because I don't have that browser sync anymore. It's gone, right? Browser sync is over. All right, so that is localhost 3000. I've gone here. I'm going to go to my contact list, and now I click add, and I can add a new thing. Now that's good, but look what it did. It added something, but then my edit, it says edit contact, and it doesn't say add contact. That's also a bug, right? This should say it changed this, but it didn't change this somehow, right? So that's messed up. Let's go back into my contact page again, or my add button. When I load link into my display edit, it checks to see if this is another bug that we found. In my display edit, it says, okay, cool. I want to get my link data. If there's any link data, if there's no link, if there's link data, then do this. If there's no link data, then look for an H1 inside of a main. Guys, we moved this around. This add contact we moved around. It's not inside of a main anymore. It's inside of a main. And if you looked at just to see it, what I'm talking about, how I found that error. If you look inside of my views, and if I look inside my content, and if I look inside my edit page, which is right here, in my edit page, right, you can see that my H1 that I'm targeting is not inside main. It's inside of a div. There is no main in here. Main is somewhere else, right? It's going to resolve by itself. So it's inside of a div where there's an H1 in a div. And that's what I need to put in my code. So when I'm targeting, I can't target the way I'm doing. I can't say, hey, look for something that's in main. No. We should at least put div and then inside of a div that's inside of main. Okay, it will be inside of a main eventually, but it won't be directly in a main. So if I press save here, and if I go to refresh, right, and the reason why I did this is because the way the router worked. Let's go back and do this. That's an error. So if I go to contact list and click add, then it should say add contact now. So that's that problem. What happens when I refresh this page? It gives me this error. It says type error, cannot read property, split of null. And that's in my contact. That's in my contact page directly. So if I go directly to edit, right, directly there, it gives me this error. And that is another bug, right? These are all bugs that, find through testing as an example. So let's go into contact.ts and see what it does. So this is basically trying to read the deserialize properly of something that's been passed into this, deserialize. So when is deserialize called in my edit contact? When is it called? Okay, well, let's go there and check it out. So switch back. So deserialize, right? If you look at my edit button, right, here's my edit button. And this is inside of my display edit. So when I go to my display edit, I'm trying to deserialize something. And why? Because what's happening is we know that there's some, I came here as an example, and I'm in this spot right here. And I'm saying that, well, my key is not equal to empty, right? But I reloaded. And so because I reloaded, I'm sending in an empty key, right? I'm sending in an empty key. And what I need to do instead when I reload the page, and that's when I went there direct, when I went and typed in /edit, right? When I went there and typed in /edit, what did it do? Well, when it came back in here, my link data, let's take a look at what link data is. Let's do a console log. Look at what my key is, console log key, just to see what this is really quickly. So we know where we are. We're going to remove this later. But in our console log key, if I press refresh and I go to my console, my key is undefined. Right? Can't be undefined. Can't be undefined, right? It has to be something that is okay. So the key is not equal to this, and the key is not equal to undefined. Can't be either one or the other. I don't want my key to be undefined or an empty string, right? Because it could be either, right? And in fact, I definitely want this condition to be first. I want to switch these around. So it can't be undefined. So key must exist. And the key can't be empty. All right, let's see if this blocks it. So save, and then refresh. And now we're good. Key is undefined. We're doing an add contact because we're not going there. Even though we went to edit, as soon as we go to edit and there's no information in there, now it's an add. And this is the problem, right? So let's get rid of this now. That was our little test, and that was a bug. We did some bug fixing, my friends. Some bug fixing, right? One thing it says that we're trying to find, I'm still do undo. I kind of erased the wrong thing. It's this one that I want to erase. Thank you for that. Is one thing we know for sure is that our bug fixing is one thing at a time, and we found a couple of bugs already today. Let's put this up on GitHub. So we'll say clear git add git commit -m, and we'll say that fixed several bugs. Git push. Okay, and that's what it did. We fixed a bunch of little bugs, right? We changed our node. We changed our look at it, says a bunch of types got added. These are all types that got added into body parser and all this other stuff. And why? Because we added in @types for node as well as for express. And once I use add types for node and express, it actually adds a bunch of other stuff like mime and a bunch of other things to understand how node works. And that's what it does. So those got added in there, and we've been doing fixing things with TypeScript. TypeScript is amazing for helping us find bugs. And that's what it's doing for us. It's helping us find the bugs. One thing also we want to get rid of is in our router right now, we're outputting this console log route. Let's get rid of that too. We don't want to see this anymore. So save. And, but for the most part now, when I go back to here into my code, and if I refresh, I need to refresh my pages. Okay, here's my page refresh. And I go to home, about, projects, services, contact, all those things work now. Let's add a new contact here. So Tom, you can put your name in there. And then 416-555-5555, tom@example.com with a message of hello, and subscribe to the list and click send. It does everything properly. And if I go to my contact list, you can see my name there, right? I can edit my name, no problem. And I can delete my name. I can add a new contact. Let's add a new contact. Stephen Strange. Contact number 416-555-5558, and email address drstrange@example.com. Click add. He gets added in, right? All I did with our route, I just took out the console log. There was a console log here for outputting my route, and I just took it out. Sorry about that, guys. Just cleaning up. So this is all working, and if let's add another one. Let's add in. What if I just click that? Can I add in an empty name? It says one or more properties of the contact is empty in my contact.ts, right? I made a contact. So that should not be allowed, right? I should not be allowed to add in an empty contact. I can add in as many of these empty contacts as I want, it seems, right? And I shouldn't be able to do that. So that's another bug we have to fix. Let's get rid of this stuff. Let's see if it deletes. It deletes fine, right? Deletes, no problem. So how do we get rid of that bug? We've kind of dealt with this bug before. I thought it was fixed, but let's just check and see if that's true. So we fix one error and we create more, right? That's how it goes. So what we're saying is when we get to the display edit, if I have a contact, then, as an example, I want to, when I click on the edit button, I do some form validation, right, as an example, and the form validation, go to definition, the form validation checks my full name, my contact number, and my email address, right? But this means that if this fails, does it also fail on contact us? Did we miss it? If I click send, does it work, right? So if I click send, if I click in there, it won't allow me to. But if I refresh the page, so here's my contact page, and click send, and I click subscribe, let's see if I can subscribe an empty contact. What does it do? Does it actually subscribe an empty contact? No. Well, how did it do it now? Why is it that, it won't even do it with my send page, right? What did I do different between add contact and my contact us page? Because I've already dealt with this problem, right? So we shouldn't have to deal with it at all. The same structure is something that we've used. So display contact, right? Okay, let's see this. So here's form validation first for display contact. Then I click my send button. That's it. And then it basically says that I'm going to check to see that I've got all this. If subscribe checkbox is checked, and the only way this is going to work, the only way I can actually, even though there's form validation, it wouldn't work, is it says that, okay, let's keep going here. Let's take a look what I did. This is my contact page. How come it didn't work on my contact page when I click the button, right, as an example? So it says, I want to get some information from my checkbox and my full name and my contact number. I get all the stuff. And then it says, if my subscribe checkbox is checked, that's the only time that I do this part. I checked it. Let my contact be a new core contact, that's empty. If my contact.serialize, if I can serialize, this method converts. If I can do it, then do it. That's what this is saying. I don't have this check in my edit if I can serialize. So down in here where I do my edit page, this is my serialization where I'm trying to serialize, right? I don't know if I can serialize, and I can edit a new contact, right? I can add a new contact regardless of my information, right? I can do this serialized stuff if I want to, right? And that's what the edit button does. So what I'm going to do instead is do that little check. If contact.serialize, can I serialize my contact? Does that compute? If I can't compute, if it doesn't compute at all, then don't add anything, right? Don't do this, right, if I can't do a contact.serialize, because it returns a string. So if my string comes back as nothing or it's undefined, this won't work. All right, let's see if that fixed my problem. So again, going back to this, and we'll refresh the page. And I go to contact list, and I click add, and I click add, nothing, right? Add with 0 doesn't give me an empty contact anymore. That's good, right? Now, if you want to, right, you could put a little bit of a check there where somehow it's completely empty. I didn't touch anything. There's no blur. My form validation doesn't check to see if there's something in the form, if everything is empty, right? So I could put in, and this is what's missing, some kind of, in my form validation, a thing that checks and gives an error that says you can't add an empty contact, right? But for now, this is a block. Let's take away that error. So we'll say that git add dot git commit -m, and we'll say fixed bug with adding empty contact. Git push. So these are little bugs that existed in our form the entire time. It was always there, even before we did all this stuff. And it could have caused other errors we didn't even know about. All right, so cool. We've got a lot of stuff ready to go. And guys, this is our first version of our single page application that works nicely. However, now we have a problem. I cannot put this up on GitHub anymore. It's not compatible. GitHub only serves up HTML pages. GitHub does not serve up a Node page. So remember, I'm using a server. I made a little server here. My server part is right here, my index.ts, this thing here. This is my server, right? And my server, I can't put a server on a server. This is a server, right? So server's got to go on its own spot. It's going to go on its own container. And GitHub doesn't do that. GitHub makes some very simple, uncomplicated pages work for you, right? It doesn't have a database. It doesn't have any of those kind of things. So what we want to do is we want to put this somewhere else. And on our links, if you go to our Durham College links under our lecture component, here's our lecture component. You can see here that I have Express. There's something called EJS. We're going to look at that in a second, but we're going to explore that more next week. And sign up for Heroku. Let's go to sign up for Heroku, which takes us to this. So this is your Heroku is a cloud service. And the big cloud services we're going to be talking about next week, I'm going to review this again, is big ones, is Microsoft Azure. So Azure, right? That's a big cloud service. Microsoft Azure, right? Another one is AWS. So AWS, Amazon Web Services, that's a big cloud service, all right? And the other one is Google Cloud Platform, right? Google Cloud Platform. Google Cloud Platform. Those are the big ones, all right? So Google Cloud Platform, you know, I'm already logged in. It knows who I am. But AWS, I have to log in. I haven't logged in properly here. I have one here too. And Microsoft Azure, I haven't logged into Microsoft Azure, the portal. Those three are three big cloud services that offer virtual machines, right, on a host. The other one that's local to Toronto that we can use is something called DigitalOcean. It's not a cloud service, but it's a provider, and it's a developer cloud, all right? What? He made you pay for Azure. He shouldn't have made you pay for Azure. So DigitalOcean It's $5 a month if you're going to pay for anything. You can make your little VMs with DigitalOcean. It's an outfit out of Toronto. Highly recommend them. They're very efficient if you're going to do something for your clients at all. And heads pay you back. Awesome. So that is DigitalOcean. Again, the big ones, Microsoft, I think Microsoft is great in terms of hosting. They've got a lot of things you can do, and there's a lot of services that they support, especially ASP.NET kind of services here. Amazon is a Linux-based cloud that allows you to create things like virtual machines, backends for games, and so on. Lots of really cool stuff. It's hugely powerful, used by millions of people in terms of what they support. And of course, Google Cloud Platform. Those are the big ones. And those are great. But the one I recommend for today and going forward for the rest of the semester, you can use one of these if you want and pay or not, or get free credits. There's some free credits you can do with Amazon and Google and even DigitalOcean. I want you guys to try Heroku. Heroku is free to start up with. You can sign up for free, and it allows you to use a cloud service similar to what we do with Microsoft, except that it supports Node.js out of the box, Ruby, Java, PHP, Python, and whatever, but it does not support Apache. So if you wanted to run a regular Apache server, you can't use this thing. You'd have to use Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud Platform. And if you're going to do it on DigitalOcean, you'd have to create your own VM and so on and do it there, right? So, but out of the box, it'll support Node.js right away. So this is what we want. I'm going to log into, Heroku here, right? Let's log in. And you can see I got like lots of little deployments that I've been messing around with over the years, and I kind of create them and everything else and remove them. It's not a big deal, okay? And you see that these are all sleeping. They have these little nodes here are all sleeping, right? This is the one I did yesterday for the other class, WEBD6201 ICE 8. We'll kind of talk about how to make this go. All right, awesome. So that's Heroku. This is what it looks like when you finally log in, and I'm going to set you guys up with this in a second. But before we even do anything on Heroku, we need to do some pre-setup, some pre-warming, if you will. Our package.json, my friends, when it comes to loading things up online, is insufficient for what we need. Okay? Let me express why. We're going to put this up online, right? Think about this for a second. We need to tell the cloud service that we're using, what am I downloading? What version of Node and NPM am I using here? Does it tell me? No, we don't tell anything. The cloud service can't really assume what you're doing with your package.json. So a good practice, whether you're using Heroku or not, is to specify what engine you're using. So if I go here to my package.json and press Control space, and I kind of search for engines, I want to specify two engines. I want to specify my Node engine, and I want to specify my NPM engine. Okay? How do I specify these? Node and NPM. Well, let's go back and revisit Node.js. Node.js has two deployments right now, two major ones. One is this 14.16.0 LTS version. The other one is 15.12.0 bleeding edge current version, which is, for all the latest features. Guys, don't think that any cloud provider will do this current feature stuff. This is rapidly changing all the time. It doesn't make sense. Chances are they're going to support something like 14.16.0 or higher. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say, I want a Node version that's greater than, that's what this little caret means, greater than 14.0.0. I don't know which one. You tell me which one you have, and that's the Node version that I'm looking for. For Node NPM, I know that it's 7. something locally, but we don't know what it is. So I'm going to say any version that is greater than 6.1.0 is okay for NPM. That'll do what we need to do here. Right, so that is your engine. So you have to put that in there. The other thing we need before we put things up on Heroku, so we need engines, we need a name, we need a version description, all this stuff needs to be there, as well as some kind of script. So we can also put a script. So if I put in scripts, I can specify a start script. So start. And my start script is going to basically tell Node how it works. So start could be something like, I want to start my code by saying node and then index.js. So what the heck does this do? Start. So scripts, you can do test scripts. You can do build scripts. If I want to build up my my files, I can do an npm command to do Typescript. I can do a watch script. I can put as many scripts as I want. How do you run scripts? Well, let's go back and go to Node and stop Nodemon for a second. What if I wanted to run manually? If I wanted to run the script, the way the scripts run is I can do npm and then the name of the script, start, and then press enter, and it'll run that script. It'll run node, it's like a batch file, node index.js, it'll run it. I need this, guys, because if I don't have a script to start my server, I don't know what my entry point is. I have no idea what my entry point is for Heroku. So you need a start location, start. All right, so let's stop that. The other thing that I have a problem with is, so let's just do Nodemon now. If I go Nodemon, it still does this, right? No problem. The other thing I have a problem with is my port, okay? My port. Let's think about this for a second. I'm putting this up live. Before, before I didn't care so much, but I have a server now. Now I've made a server where I'm saying that I want to go to port 3000. Here's a question for you guys, a general question, right? Do you think that Heroku, Microsoft Azure, and Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud Platform will allow me to use their port 3000 only for me? Think about that. So it's only my port. I'm going to reserve port 3000 for the entire world. It's my port, right? Guys, that's absolutely ridiculous. No, it's not true. I can't. We deserve it. Yeah, I know. We can't do it. It's impossible. So this is incorrect. This doesn't work. I can't do port 3000. So I want to think about a process, right? So if I go process.env.port, right, is what I want to use. I want to see process.env.port. Process.environment is what it stands for, .port. And port is a string, my friends, a string. So that is what I want to use, a process environment port. Or I want to use 3000. One of the two, okay? So that's what I want this to be. So if I take this port and I put it here and I say it's either going to be this process environment port or, right, or I want it to be 3000. That's what I want. I want it to be either this process environment port. This environment port is going to come from the provider. That's where it's coming from. All right. Or port 3000. All right. Let's see if this runs locally still. So if I go Nodemon and run it, yeah, it runs. It says 3000. There is no environment port that I've set. Process environment port. All right, that's what this env comes from, right? I haven't switched environment to tell you what the port is. I'd have to set this manually. It's actually a global that I have to set with Node.js. I haven't set it, and I'm not going to, right? I want to say it's either one or the other. Now it should run no problem on Heroku. At least I need this minimum stuff. All right, we've made some changes for Heroku. Let's put it up on GitHub. So I'm going to say git add dot git commit -m. Oh, let's also, one more thing, sorry. This won't, we have to build this. We have to build this, right? Right, because this isn't, I'm probably not running Control-Shift-B. I'm not running this anymore. Let's do a watch task and make sure this transpiles, because remember, this is a TS file, and I want to make a JS file over here, right, where I'm listening to my process environment port. I need to have this in there, sorry. Otherwise, it wouldn't have, I think I've stopped the transpile task, right? Until now. All right, that's good. So I'm terminating all the tasks. Yeah. And I want to put it up on GitHub now. Okay, so let's try that again. Let's go to commands, git add dot, git commit -m, and I'm going to say updated port for Heroku. Git push. And that pushes all my changes up to GitHub. Let's take a look at GitHub and see what I have now. So if I go up to GitHub and let's take a look at it, make some changes. So I'm going to say Durham Programmer, github.com/Durham Programmer, and let's take a look at my project. My project looks like this now. I have this 404 that I don't need. Let's get rid of that. That's a bad thing to have. I don't need that at all. I have updated port for Heroku, which I changed some stuff here. But let's change this up. Let's make sure there's no 404. Let's get rid of that. So I'm going to go to my 404 and get rid of that. Delete. The other thing we're not going to do is we're never going to host on GitHub with this stuff anymore. So let's get rid of the .NoJekyll file. We don't need that either. Delete. Okay. We're doing some cleanup is what I'm doing, right? So this is important. Okay, and then what I want to do, I think this is good. Let's do that again. So clear. So git add dot git commit -m, and I'll say removed 404.html file. Or remove files. I'll say remove files unnecessary, not used for Heroku. Git push. Okay, so everything is ready now. I think we're pretty good to go. Let's see if it works. So how do we make this work? On Heroku, right, we're going to go to your Heroku page. Hopefully you've had a chance to create this page. If not, you can watch the video later, right? But what you want to do, and this, we're gonna need this for your lab 4, which I'm almost this close to getting done. I just wanted to make the finishing touches on it. Lab 4 is a much bigger lab than all the other stuff you've done. It's a culmination of everything you've done in this course, and it's going to be due the last week of semester, but it needs a few more pieces than what we've done. All right, so what we need to do here is under here, I want to make a new file, a new project in Heroku, and it says there's 2 options, create new pipeline or create new app. I want to make a new app, obviously. And it says choose region is either United States or Europe. That's the only thing that Heroku supports. That's, again, maybe a disadvantage in some ways. For example, if I had Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud Platform, or something else, you may have additional data centers that you could target so that if you're closer to Asia or Australia or someplace else, they have a bunch of data centers all over the world, and it makes it so that the latency when you're accessing a particular resource is lower than if I'm based out of a certain spot. As an example, here we don't really care. We're making our little app, and we're going to just go here, and we're just going to use United States. It's probably close enough for us. And let's look at our app name. Our app name has to start with lowercase letters, so it's WEBD, for me, 6201 in the winter 2021 semester, and it is ICE 8B. That's what I want to make, and then press enter, which is going to create my app. So that is my my app name, okay? And I get to this page. Okay, now I gotta wait. Are you with me? Are you here? Do you have a Heroku account? Did you create a stub, a container for your app? You need this first. You have your GitHub, you've already set that up, and then you've made this part here. Have you done it? Yes or no? Nicholas says yes. Muzda says you have your account. How about Jackie? Jackie, are you good? Andre, you're okay. And I'm going to move on now because we're going to time out. But hopefully, Jackie, you have it too. All right. You need to make an account. Okay. So do you want me to wait? It's okay. All right. So what you need to do is now you have options. There's deployment methods. How do I deploy to Heroku? Well, I could use the Heroku Git CLI directly from your Git locally with no GitHub. I can just, basically teleport into Heroku itself, Heroku Git, which is like a, because I'm uploading all my files, and I can do it here. I can also use a container registry, which is using Heroku CLI. I can upload a container like Docker, and it'll come up here as well. That's the second deployment method. The other one is GitHub, which I love. GitHub is the easiest one. So let's use this one. So click this. And then it gives me my default account information. Now you have to give Heroku access, permission, and there's several steps involved in coming to this point. Once I click on GitHub, it's going to ask me to provide permission to Heroku, and then I've already done that step. Here under your account, if you have multiple organizations like I do, then you'd have to choose the organization that's relevant. For me, it's Durham Programmer for this example. Okay. And under the repo name, you need to know what the repo name is ahead of time, or some way of looking at it. Again, I can look at my repo name here, and I can just copy paste this repo name from here to Heroku and press search. And then it should find it for you, the one that you need. So you need a repo before you come to this step. That's why I said make your repo, do everything we're going to do, blah, 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 or whatever. And then click connect. So when you click connect, now it's doing its connection, right? It's not deploying yet. We're just connecting, Heroku, the stuff from GitHub to Heroku. What I want to do is I want to enable automatic deploys. This is like continuous integration. Okay, that's what it does. Continuous integration, it basically is a watch task that watches GitHub. So if there's any changes on my GitHub repository, it automatically uploads to Heroku. It redeploys, it rebuilds the server. Okay, let's click on Enable Automatic Deploys. Okay, and it's enabling automatic deploys to work from main. Okay, and then the last thing is, let's manually deploy our first time. So I'm going to click on Deploy Branch. So when I click Deploy Branch, it's going to actually do the deployment script, and we can watch it right here, right? So notice what it's doing. It says building on Heroku. This is the stack. We're creating a runtime environment, installing binaries. Here's Node at 14.0.0 or greater. Here's NPM at 16.1.0. Here's Yarn. We never specified the Yarn package. Notice we didn't say what the Yarn package is, so it's using the default. It says downloading and installing Node 14.16.0. That's what it supports, and it bootstraps NPM at 6.14.11. That's pretty good. Oh, it's done. I wasn't quick enough to go through that. And then if you want to view the deployment, you click on View, and if everything went well, then you're good. Here is the link for you guys to look at. You can look at this link too, my friends. It's live and it works everywhere in the world. Let's check it though to make sure it's working, and it should work for you and for me. It deployed properly. Okay. If I go to About, Projects, Services, and Contact, it's good. But what if I log in? Can I log in? So admin. I mean, this is a flat file that I'm logging into, right? It looks like I have a database, but I really don't. It's just a little flat file that I'm using. And I'm going to click Add Contacts. Let's add me, Tom. Well, let's add Tom Smythe, my alternate persona, and tom.smythe at example.com, and click Add. And then we're here, we're good, right? And I can go edit, we can edit that, and I can delete it. Let's add a new contact from here. Let's add Peter Parker. And then Spider-Man at example.com. Click Add. And we can see that that works. Let's get delete me. And now I've done my full gamut of create, read, update, delete. I've done all those things. All right, so that is all the things I wanted to cover with you guys. This is the stuff for ICE 8. Okay, now the question you might have is, well, Tom, we're doing a Heroku install, and does this need to be done for ICE 8? And I'm going to say I'm not going to require it for ICE 8. If you just did your local, stuff on your machine, and you give me some screenshots for ICE 8 of your local deployment, like localhost, I'm okay for ICE 8. But for your labs and ongoing for future in-class exercises, they all should be deployed to Heroku. All right, so please make sure you have, if you do this. No, Lab 3, oh, that's a good question. Lab 3 does not have to deploy to Heroku, and it does not have to deploy. If it says GitHub, because we're using a single page application, GitHub will give you errors that I showed you the errors already for Lab 3, and I've given you a starter that has errors on it, right? So guys, let's be reasonable. Lab 3, it's practice for Ajax. It does not have to be on GitHub. It does not have to be on Heroku. Yeah, I'm not looking for that. And this way, it's easier for you guys to get going on this stuff. And then when we get to Lab 4, that does have to be on Heroku. Because I think for future labs, I think it makes sense. All right, questions around this. And let's just briefly look at my lab that I'm cooking up for you guys. I'm just kind of rebalancing the marks is where I'm at with it right now. Let's take a look at Lab 4 really briefly. And I will produce this for you very soon. Okay, so when is this due, right? Yes, I'll do that. So Lab 4, it's not published yet, but I will be in a bit. It's going to be due week 13, so it's Friday, April 16th, 2021. That's why it's not deployed yet. Woohoo, right? You like that? Friday, April 16th is the last day of our semester. So I can't give you till Sunday for this lab. It's going to be due the Friday, all right? Value is 15%. It's going to be an express portfolio site that you're making, which is something you've been doing all along. We've been using the same structure. It's not like new structure. Whatever you've already had for your fictitious portfolio site, you can carry over the content that we've already had, and even the content pages we've created. You can get credit for these things in here. However, there are changes that I'm going to make you do with you and your partners. And I'm saying partner because, again, it's you and people that are working with. You're going to need to use Express.js and the EJS templating engine, which we haven't covered yet, okay? You're not going to make a single page application the way we're doing it. So we need to do some major rejigging from now until the end. And I will show you how to do all those things from now until then, right? And it says you need to host it live on a cloud service such as Microsoft Azure, Heroku, or DigitalOcean. I didn't mention AWS, but I recommend Heroku, right? As an option, if working alone, you may use this assignment as a chance to craft your own personal portfolio site. So if you want to make a portfolio site to put up so you can share it with possible employers and talk about this thing and say, look, here's my portfolio site, and I built it with using full CRUD on an Express server of my own that I made. All right, and it's on Heroku and it's live. Your site will also include a secure area that displays a list of business contacts, very similar to our contact list already, right? So you already have an idea how the contact list works. All we're doing is really converting all the examples we've been doing all through this entire semester to something that is available online. Part of it's already done. We need to do the rest. And I'm giving you credit for getting started. All right. So what I'm looking for is a home page, an about me page, a projects page, a services page, and a contact me page. Notice it says projects, not products, right? So you can use some of the code that we already have for the previous labs we have. Your site must include appropriate content for your personal portfolio, and it talks about navigation and custom logo and your home page, mission statement, all that kind of stuff. Same kind of thing I've given you before. You can also make a fictitious person that you're making the page about. So you're building it for somebody else, and if you're working with your partner, so you don't have to make it about you. You can make it about somebody else, right? This fictitious person. Projects and services and contact pages the same as they were before, and you get I believe 10 marks or so for content. Again, the marks are in flux right now, but it's going to look like 10 marks, most likely. And then you're going to have to use the Express server site structure in order for you to create your site. So you need to generate your site with something called the Express generator, which I'm going to go over with you next week. How to use that, how to rejig it, how to take our site that we have right now and make it work. And it's no longer a single page application the way we have it on the client side. We're going to make a single page application work on the server side. Okay, that's how we're going to do it. And it says, note, you must use the -E option to ensure that you implement the EJS templating engine for Express. And that's why I gave you this link for EJS. EJS is really a templating engine that allows us to do something that looks like this. I can use these little, less than % and % greater than as almost like brackets. And I can inject JavaScript wherever these brackets exist. It's that simple, right? And it looks very similar to PHP or JSP. Yeah, it looks very similar to that. And what it does is allows us to inject content inside these areas that comes from the server, right? So we can create true templates as opposed to the way we've been doing it so far. Okay, so that's what it does. It's easy to install and to use, and you don't have to use Express to use it, as an example. But we're going to use Express because it binds nicely, and it uses something that the structure looks like this, where I can kind of bind and inject stuff with EJS, which is pretty cool. We're going to learn all about this starting next week. All right, so that's what it says. Let's continue. So the EJS templating engine. And then you must also install all the modules required, because whenever you do an Express generator, what ends up happening is you have to do an npm install, and that's what this means. Your JavaScript, CSS, and multimedia asset files should be separate in separate folders within the public folder. Kind of did that already. We just called it client. Client or public, I would accept either one if it's this client or public. All your code, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, whatever, is error-free. The part 3 is server-side routing and content views. So your portfolio set will use Express.js and Node, and your site's content has been split across various partial files. We've kind of done that. We just need to rejig these things so they work with the EJS templating engine, which will start next week. You will create any required routes by using the Express middleware framework. Each page in the website will be split into its own partial files in views partials. We did that already. And we have to use the Express routing that looks something like this, router.get and router.put or post. We'll talk about these routing options as an example going forward, as well as your page logic should be split into its own controllers folder. Again, I will explain how we do all this stuff starting next week. Okay, and then site security. This is the part that, again, looks like a lot. All I've done is just detailed it for you so that you don't feel you don't know what to do. These are all things that you can check mark. Okay, I've got my login view. I got my register view. You have this stuff already, right? But it has to function with Express. That's all. And this is where your marks will be coming from. And if somehow you're missing something, you'll lose marks from those sections. You'll know exactly where the marks are coming from. That's how I set things up, right? In the application database will contain a user collection, as an example. Now, I never specified you need to use MongoDB or whatever, but that's what this assumes. The assumption is that you're going to use some kind of database on the back end. I'm not specifying. I'm not telling you have to use Mongo. I recommend MongoDB, and we'll talk about what that is. MongoDB comes in two forms. One that is we're going to talk about later on, which is local. And MongoDB is, again, we briefly touched upon this week, is server-side a JSON object kind of format. It uses something called BSON, that's very JSON-like, so very JavaScript-like. And it uses, kind of JavaScript object notation, kind of like structure to do queries and updates and all those kind of things. We're going to install MongoDB locally on your machine. And then later, we're going to use something called Mongodb Atlas remotely. So Mongodb Atlas, if you look at Mongodb Atlas, it's here. Mongodb Atlas is, no credit card required, is a service, right? Is a service that works with AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Microsoft Azure, and anything else, right? And it's going to be separate from our Express server. So the Express server that we're running, it's going to be running on Heroku, and then we're going to point to MongoDB Atlas, right? Yeah, I know. Oh, there's other things here. eHarmony. So this is something that MongoDB Atlas is what we're going to be using later on. And you need a backend in order for you to do something. You can't use a local file anymore because you're going to be writing out to the file. We're not going to be using local storage anymore. Local storage was our mock-up, but I want true persistence, and I want you guys to have the same data that I have. My local storage only works for me, not for you, right? So you and I have to have the same files, and so we need to use MongoDB Atlas for that, and I'll show you how to set all that up in the coming weeks. So that's coming up. So that's your login and register pages, and this is where we set up all of our database as an example. And our secure contact list view is something that the only way that you can get there is if you're logged in. Very similar to what we've done with an auth guard. We're going to create guards that are going to be done from the server side this time, not the client side. So everything's going to be done server side as opposed to client side, which is really awesome, and lots of control. A lot of the validation, all those things we've programmed in our app.js is still going to remain. We're not going to remove some of those things, but some functionality, some features that are taken care of, for example, router.js that we wrote, is going to be gone. We don't need that anymore. And we won't need a lot of other things that we've created on the client side. Why? Because we're going to move all those pieces to the server side where they belong. Okay? So that's what it does, the secure area. And then there's going to be an update view. So there's two views, really. There's going to be a contact list view, and there's going to be an update view, similar to what we did with the edit view. Update view, or even if it's called edit, it doesn't matter to me what it's called. But the update view will allow you to update, and there's some extra functionality here that we don't have in our view. For example, you can also delete, use the delete button, which doesn't exist in our view, to delete a contact right from the edit view, as opposed to going back to the contact view. Okay, and the delete button will only appear. There's some functionality here that say that the delete button will only appear when and only when that this stuff happens. So this is the way it's going to work. So all the things we've been working on so far are the things that I'm going to give you. Documentation and version control, cloud hosting, and video demo are all the same. Nothing has changed here. Internal documentation, version control, cloud hosting. The only thing you're doing is you're putting it on Heroku. I recommend. Again, you can choose whichever cloud host you're interested in. Doesn't matter to me. Demo video is the exact same, and I'm working on this piece right now. That's why it doesn't look quite right, but that will be up later on today. But that is the document, and I'm recording this, so I want you to get started on thinking about putting your stuff together after this. So worst case scenario, please refer to this video if you have questions. As an example, not now, but when you start working on lab 4, this is the final lab of the semester, and it's going to be due again Friday, April 16th at midnight. Okay, any questions about anything we've covered today? We've covered how to put stuff up on Heroku. We've covered many things. How to fix some bugs, we did with app.ts. We made a little server with Express, and we even did things with static files, did a lot of stuff. I'll fix your errors. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, guys, otherwise, that's it for this week. I'll see the rest of you on next week, right? And for the ice, Jackie, what I'm looking for is I'd like you to, a couple things, again, because it looks very similar. And this is a good question that you're asking. If you go back here, what I'd like to see is your structure, your site structure here. So take a screenshot of your server. So this is like the index.ts. Just give me a screenshot of that to show me what this looks like. Maybe a couple screens if you need to. Definitely, I want you to show me this piece where you have your client views, inside of its own client folder and your views. This structure right here, because this basically shows me that you're using an index.ts. I want to see the index.ts as much as possible, that you're using something that looks like this, right? I think this is important. And of course, maybe a screenshot of your actual app working would be nice. For example, that contact list view might be really good. Okay, and that's it. Otherwise, guys, if you have any questions, please hit me up. I know that lab 3 is due. You're getting an error when I click on deploy branch. Okay, so let me, I'll fix yours in a second, and we'll talk more about Heroku and deployment errors next week. For now, though, I'm going to sign off from YouTube, and I will, let's talk about the people who have errors here locally.